about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. One of her advocacy builds something meaningful, multi-creative professional, no other than Miss Tiffany Smith. Welcome, Miss Tiffany, on Book One Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself? That I guess.
Yes, hi Daniel. I'm happy to be here with you today. As you mentioned, I'm a multi-faceted creative professional in New York City.
Yes. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Tiffany. Thank you. So today let's talk about life and creativity. So how do you define creativity in the broadest, most life-encompassing sense? Is it solely about artistic output, or is it a way for perceiving and moving through the world?
A little bit of both, and it really depends on the person. For me personally, I've always had creative vision, quite literally, and I've always had a strong sense of an inner compass. I feel like my professional creative path has always been with me since I can remember when I was around 5 years old. Um, but I do believe it can show up differently for every individual person. Sometimes people find their creative sparks in something like home decor or even just fashion sense or food, technology. Their creativity exists on so many levels. People can typically kind of gravitate towards creative platforms or outlets that maybe are more popularized or accessible. But a lot of it too, I think, comes down to every individual person having their own internal world and internal compass, and that sometimes can foster and nurture a creative pursuit.
Mm, very well said, Miss. Many see creativity as a sporadic burst of inspiration. How do you frame instead as a sustainable practice or even a way of being that is woven into a fabric of a daily life?
For me personally, creativity and just the act of creating, even if it's just writing down vision or ideas that surface, that is 100% my daily life. I don't, it's very rare that I'm not in that space. But I do understand that there are a lot of people that pursue creative opportunity and professional fields where they absolutely take a break from the creative kind of space, and it typically flows for them in a very structured 9 to 5, Monday through Friday kind of way. So, from my personal experience, it's every day, all the time. I never stop thinking about it. It's I live, breathe, sleep creative work and pursuit. But on the other side of that, there are so many creative professionals that are extremely talented, super, super creative, and are just some of the best people to kind of work with as in leadership and creative direction, art direction, inspiration, just in general. And those people tend to kind of lock it into a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday schedule. So again, I think it may just depend on the person. I've had my kind of more unique experience with it which is what kind of prompts me to share more externally in this kind of way. Is I know that I've had kind of maybe a strange experience with it, um, and that sometimes differs from the norm from my experience.
From your perspective, what is the most profound connection between a life lived with curiosity and courage and capacity to create?
I think it really does come down to allowing yourself to be who you are without permission. I definitely grew up and lived for a very long time in my life feeling like I needed to ask permission to create space for myself. I definitely stayed hidden for a very long time. I kind of, I don't know, shied away, but more so just felt like I needed to be invited in, and that was the answer to me having acceptance. But what I've learned over the years, it's a lot of our life comes from accepting ourselves and being who we are without asking someone if they um, allow us in or accept us enough to be seen. We kind of have to go on a journey to see ourselves, accept ourselves, love ourselves. And I believe that that breeds and kind of fosters and nurtures kind of a lot of aspects of life in general that create your capacity to create and learn and explore and be curious and remain kind of in that student. I don't know everything, and I am always searching for more knowledge and asking why. I think that's important.
Very well said, Miss Tiffany. So, how do you navigate a critical inner voice of self doubt, perfectionism, or the inner critic that can paralyze creative energy? What's your strategy for moving from paralysis to flow?
I feel like a lot of my experience with any kind of that negative self-talk or inner critic, it definitely I've noticed a pattern. Typically, that tends to happen maybe if I'm having a difficult time sleeping at night, or maybe there are other frustrating factors or narratives or variables going on in my life during that time. It could be diet, it could be exercise, it could be the fact that I am experiencing a little bit of burnout professionally or socially. It could be that I've been internalizing too much and need to start being external. I feel like when I notice that negative narrative surface, it's typically, not always, but typically I can associate it with maybe lack of sleep, maybe a little bit of imbalance, not drinking enough water. It can be associated to so many different variables. But in general, that negative self talk, it can be really helpful because you know, it's also your inner voice asking to be recognized, seen, and unpacked. So having those moments of negative, critical thought and conversation with yourself is an opportunity to dig into that and pull back some of those layers and try to discover what's really hiding beneath that surface. And I believe exploring that is absolutely essential to continued growth and success.
So, Miss Tiffany, can you describe the process for translating a raw feeling, a vague intuition, or a fragment of an idea into something tangible, whether a sentence, strategy, or a meal or a painting?
Yes, a lot of my creative vision comes very sporadically throughout the day. I can't really pinpoint exactly where those ideas or visions come from. I don't look for inspiration. I don't follow a lot of visual artists. I don't study visual artists in a way that I'm looking to copy or mimic anything. I I solely just allow things to align and surface in kind of, a flow is what you've said. And in that, those sparks typically turn into something tangible, whether it needs to be explored further and developed. Some of those ideas tend to grow and branch off, and some of those ideas really just don't stick. For example, I could get kind of uh, like a string of words sometimes will surface, and I will explore it, and those words will turn into a more abstract narrative, an idea to play with, therefore leading to a visual representation. And that visual representation typically finds itself in my online portfolio or social platforms, or art gallery or film or somewhere else to present it. So I'm absolutely, I've always been in the habit of receiving that surfacing ideas and vision and executing it.
Miss Tiffany, we often think creativity is adding something new. When has the subtraction, constraint, or embracing limits been the most powerful catalyst for your own creativity?
Throughout my career, I've had the privilege of performing in leadership roles, and within those leadership roles, there is a crucial demand to understand the limitations that you're working within, and it's important to study a brand, it's important to understand the guidelines, it's important to work with inside of a box and be creative within that space. There is always room for creative innovation, but being within marketing or branding or advertising or any kind of creative space that demands specific parameters, it's very important to understand how to pull back and when to practice some restraint. And that can be incredible for the creative process. Sometimes limiting yourself forces you to be even more creative because you have to exercise different muscles.
Indeed, exercise that muscle to be creative. How can the principles of creative thinking, like play, improvisation, and reframing, be applied to solve a non-artistic problems like mending a relationship or navigating a career transition?
Yeah, it's interesting, pointing out kind of the idea of play is somewhat tied to our youth. And when we think about ourselves and our youth kind of nature and stage in life, um, we we tend to remember a time when we were not judging as much and we didn't feel that type of judgment back because we simply weren't worried about it. So when you think about the idea of play and creativity being a world of play, there is a constant conversation and opportunity to take that outside of the work environment, the professional kind of uh, realm, and bring it into relationships and friendships and networking events or public speaking. When you're nervous, when you're sad, when you're angry, frustrated, there's a way to continue to connect to that youthful version of yourself and kind of remember that the child version of us is always present and that part of us is always accessible. We just have to understand sometimes to take a breath and not not mimic drama, not mimic any kind of severe type of conflict. We don't need to get loud and raise our voices or be violent or hurtful towards each other. because as children, we typically didn't do that. I mean, as children, we can maybe have like a temper tantrum in a way that, we lost our favorite toy or something like that. But as we go into our adult chapters, we have a different understanding of our emotional capacity, and we understand our regulation in a different way, and we also can condition our nervous systems and our wiring a little bit so that we can continue to remember that youthful child version of us that doesn't need to put up a fight, doesn't need to be so defensive about everything, and can just kind of have a conversation with curiosity. And I think that curiosity is tied to that sense of play and youth.
Very well said, Miss Tiffany. Yeah. And what does it mean to curate your inputs for a creative life? How do you consciously manage what you read, watch, and listen in order to fuel rather than deplete your creative energy?
Yeah, that's interesting. I've been asked this question quite often. A lot of people are curious about how I create things. My answer has always been the same. I always rely on my creative vision. It's organic and it's natural and it surfaces when it feels like it needs to, and that's kind of where I work from. Um, when it comes to that form of execution, I, you know, everyone kind of goes through their own processes when it comes to bringing ideas into the world while the noise is still very much existing around us all of the time. I personally started to take a break from watching TV. This has maybe been the last few months, and I've continued to not watch TV, and that has been one of the most helpful things I've ever done in my entire life. I hope that I continue to keep my TV off. Same thing with social media. I stay off of it typically. I'm not on TikTok. Um, I only visit Instagram for engagement. So I keep things very external. I keep things very organic and natural. I I very much make it a point not to actively look for the noise. So that kind of staticky noise that is always surrounding us, telling us what perfection is, telling us what health is, telling us who we are or what our age means during this time of, our culture, or society, what our political views should be. So much of that noise can be very polluting when it comes to the creative, more organic process that I tend to lean towards. But again, to each their own. I know that there are a lot of creative professionals that heavily rely on things like Instagram and Pinterest and following artists and constantly mimicking other creative ideas. And they don't typically get those ideas surface organically, so they're needing to kind of look for it, and that is also including noise.
Miss Tiffany, as you're building something meaningful, what are your short term and long term goals?
I continue to gravitate towards leadership. I believe in not just working or creating for myself. I believe that everything we do as an individual person is reflective in the world that surrounds us. I believe that the energy that we output is something very meaningful and something to consider heavily as we live our daily lives. So leadership roles are constantly part of my kind of ambition and pursuit, as I believe in working with a team and I believe in a leadership example that promotes compassion and empathy and humanity within a team where there is no, someone's better than this person or someone is less than because of a title. I heavily believe that we need leaders in this world that believe in humanity first, and I have a little part of that being that I can continue to pursue leadership roles and executive roles that allow me to kind of model that in some way and hopefully breed and foster that within my own teams. So that's kind of where I'm always continuing to head, is continuing to be a leader and continuing to pursue that.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Tiffany, and looking forward for more success. And what will be a piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
I always give people the same kind of advice, which is always be you. So um as charming or romantic as it may look for people to be a successful creative professional in New York City, and for me it is absolutely a dream come true, and I really love the life that I've created for myself. But it is because I've remained myself. It is because I haven't listened to the noise telling me who I should or shouldn't be. So, my advice would be, if you want to pursue something that feels correct and aligned, and it makes your heart happy, and puts a smile on your face, and it allows you to exude that type of energy into the world and your loved ones and your home and your surroundings, the absolute key to that is embracing who you are, understanding you and loving yourself, and creating that kind of harmony within so that it's shared outwardly and you continue to radiate that. So that's my 100% is be you.
Mm. Well, thank you for that advice, Miss Tiffany. And what will be your recommended books that influence your journey?
Did you say the recommended books? I'm sorry.
Yes, please. Can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I heavily am so intrigued and inspired by autobiographies. The Bob Dylan autobiography, Chronicles, Volume 1, is amazing. I just recently listened to a David Lynch biography on Spotify, and he has a couple. I believe he also has a book called Lynch on Lynch that is also a really beautiful story and perspective. Yeah, I definitely lean towards biographies. I love to hear people's stories.
Well, thank you for that recommended books, Miss Tiffany. So, how has your understanding of creativity evolved as you move through different seasons of your life? Is that the source of expression different now than it was decades ago?
Absolutely. When I was growing up, even going through, high school and art school and post some of that, I definitely felt more limited, and I experienced standing more in my own way versus today in New York, where this type of city is so welcoming of diverse ideas and innovation, and it's just a more open-minded kind of arena when it comes to creative individuals wanting to pursue excellence. So, being in this city, I have branched out tremendously in a way that I have never done before ever in my life or my career. This city has fully embraced me and allowed me to find community and opportunity and really thrive in that in a way that I can be connected to film and theater and work with dancers and comedians and actors, musicians and fashion, photography. It just allows so much creative kind of pursuit here. So yes, my I definitely live in this time right now with no limitations versus growing up. I definitely felt like I had quite a bit.
Well, to wrap up our discussion for today, Miss Tiffany, if creatively is about making new connections, what is the most important connection that you hope people make between their own creative practice and what the art of living meaningful life?
Yeah, so I mean, the power of connection is something that I've been pursuing and searching for since I was 5 years old. I've always been looking for people to authentically connect to, and I've been looking for communities and a creative professional space to connect to. So I believe it's all part of the same source. When something feels right, whether it's creatively or you meet someone and it clicks in, I I fully advise to follow that path. When you meet someone and it's good, or you create something and it feels right, continue on that pursuit.
So indeed, continue and stop procrastinating. If you have the talent, please share to the world and do it every day. So, Miss Tiffany, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. Can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I am very active on my Instagram, and that is Creativity22. So if I'm followed there or anyone just wants to take a peek, that's typically where I update a lot of my current projects.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Tiffany Smith because if you support her for sure, more and more empowering creativity will rise. So, Miss Tiffany, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. This was a pleasure. Thank you.
Likewise, more to come, people. See you soon.